were revealed to me as I talked with elders and accompanied them on their plant-gathering walks. The first of these was that one gains respect for nature by using it judiciously. By using a plant or an animal, interacting with it where it lives, and tying your well-being to its existence, you can be intimate with it and understand it. The elders challenged the notion I had grown up with, that one should respect nature by leaving it alone, by showing me that we learn respect through the demands put on us by the great responsibility of using a plant or an animal. Many elders I interviewed said that plants do better when they gather them. At first, this was a jarring idea. I had been taught that native plants were here long before humans and did best on their own without human interference. But it soon became clear to me that my native teachers were giving me another crucial gift of insight. California Indians had established a middle ground between the extremes of overexploiting nature and leaving it alone, seeing themselves as having the complementary roles of user, protector, and steward of the natural world. I had been reading about how various animals' interactions with plant populations actually benefited those plants. How grizzly bears scattered the bulbits of erythronium lilies in the process of rooting up and eating the mature bulbs. How California's scrub jays helped oaks reproduce by losing track of some of the acorns they buried. And it seemed plausible that the many generations of humans in California's past had played a similar role. If it was true that native plants did better with our help, it meant that there was a place for us in nature. About halfway into the years of field work, I began to ask native elders, why are many plants and animals disappearing? Their answers, which always pinned the blame on the absence of human interaction with a plant or an animal, began to add up to a third major insight. Not only do plants benefit from human use, but some may actually depend on humans using them. Human tending of certain California native plants had been so repetitive and long-term that the plants might very well have become adapted to moderate human disturbance. This idea had a very practical corollary. The conservation of endangered species and the restoration of historic ecosystems might require the reintroduction of careful human stewardship rather than simple hands-off preservation. In other words, reestablishing the ecological associations between people and nature might be appropriate in certain areas. As I rediscovered the old ways in California, I began to look more broadly at indigenous practices around the world. I found that some of the judicious harvesting and horticultural practices of California indigenous cultures were remarkably similar to those of native peoples in South America, Australia, and Africa. I was intrigued that parallel resource use and management systems had developed independently on different continents. For example, Australian Aborigines and California Indians both used cattail for cordage and other purposes, burning off tool marshes to recycle dead material and spur new growth. Ancient peoples in Egypt cultivated flax to encourage it to produce long, straight stems with longer bast fibers, good for cordage and textiles, much like the first Californians tended patches of dogbane, so that its stems would produce fibers suitable for weaving belts, tumplines, feather capes, skirts, and many other items. There were also important parallels in food production systems. The Mojave in Southern California and the ancient Incas of South America sowed and cultivated the edible seeds of a pigweed in the genus Chenopodium, and many California Indian tribes echoed the practice of the indigenous peoples of Chile by eating the oily seeds of species in the genus Madia and caring for populations of the plants. The Paiute tribe of Owens Valley broadcast edible seeds of chia to thicken stands and introduce the plant to irrigated areas. And we have evidence that chia was sown and regularly cultivated along with corn in ancient Mexico. These parallels indicated to me that our human forebears everywhere did not just passively gather food and basketry materials, but actively tended the plant and animal populations.